Everyone is buzzing about a report that was released by the lead investigator, Louis Freeh, in the Jerry Sandusky case. And he has released the emails that he's used in the investigations, and they indicate that the top officials at the university did not want to turn Jerry Sandusky in after one of the student assistants had seen him raping a young boy in the showers.
So the emails are incredibly damning. The Freeh Report that has come in now by the former FBI director, incredibly damning. And at the end of the day, you look at all this and you think, there doesn't appear to be any questions left. It looks like Paterno and the others covered this up. And in the emails, you see them saying, well, we're just trying to be humane and reasonable. Yeah, maybe to Sandusky, but not very humane to the kids involved, obviously. And the Freeh Report explains that the corruption basically was so deep that even the janitors who had seen the rapes were afraid to report it because they had gotten the memo. Everybody knew, we're not reporting this thing. You better shut up, otherwise you're going to get fired.
Now, I actually want to read you guys the email, but before I do so, I just want to mention that Louis Freeh had a press conference, and he kind of summarizes what he found in his report, and it's very damning. Let me read it to you. He says, the evidence shows that Mr. Paterno was made aware of the 1998 investigation of Sandusky, followed it closely, but failed to take any action, even though Sandusky had been a key member of his coaching staff for almost 30 years, and had an office just steps away from Mr. Paterno's. At the very least, Mr. Paterno could have alerted the entire football staff in order to prevent Sandusky from bringing another child into the Lash building, but he didn't do so.
Yeah, and when you get more into the details, it gets worse and worse because they allowed Sandusky to stay there for all those years and to use the reputation of Penn State to lure even more victims in. And he's right there. They see him. It's not like they didn't know what he did. Once you find out definitively that they knew exactly what he did and then let him continue, well, then it becomes beyond inexcusable. And so when they talk about some people are advocating that they take down the Paterno statue at Penn State, you got to do it, man. And you know, a lot of football fans are like, oh, what a shame he was such a great football coach. You're right. It is a shame. He was a great football coach. But that's not all there is to a human being. I can't have a statue of a human being up where everybody goes like, wow, great statue, when we knew he covered up child rape.
Now, Nike has decided to take Joe Paterno's name off their list at the Child Care Center in Oregon. So we're already seeing companies that have praised Joe Paterno in the past kind of, you know, deleting him from lists, getting rid of statues, that kind of thing, or at least proposing that they get rid of statues. So this is having a very huge impact on society. Like, I'm seeing tweets, I'm seeing people on Facebook kind of outraged about this. And at first, I think a lot of people wanted to give Joe Paterno the benefit of the doubt, but you can't deny this evidence. So let's talk about the emails a little bit. In this email that was obtained by Freeh, from back in 2001, by the way, it was written, the athletic director, Curley, wrote, after talking it over with Joe, and of course this is after McQueary had reported what he had seen to the officials. Curley says, after talking it over with Joe, Curley wrote that he was having trouble with going to anyone but Sandusky to handle the matter. Curley laid out the plan to meet with the individual to discuss the situation, get him professional help, and notify him that they would contact his organization.
So look at the frame of mind there. Let's get Sandusky help. How about the victims? How about the 15-year-old kid who was raped in unimaginable ways? And you're saying, well, let's be, and you see in the other emails, whether it's Penn State's VP Gary Schultz or Penn State President Graham Spanier, over and over talking about how they humanely handle it, but they're always referring to Sandusky. They're not talking about how you would humanely handle it or get counseling or get help to any of the child victims. For them, that's irrelevant. Sandusky is one of theirs. Now, that leads to two possible reasons why they did this. One, they know Sandusky for 30 years. At least Paterno does, and the others have known him for a long time. And so they feel like, oh, well, you know, we feel bad for him because he used to be a friend of ours or he is a friend of ours. And the other way to look at it is, well, they also cared about their precious, precious football program. And God, it would be a blow to their reputation if you found out that this guy was there. It was probably a combination of those two things. But the one thing that they never considered, and this is what the Freeh Report mentions over and over, is the victims.
I know.
And in such a horrible crime against such defenseless victims, where they use the reputation of Penn State to lure in the victims. No, it's beyond all bounds of reason. Everybody is guilty in terms of, you know, how they handle this matter, whether there'll be criminal charges, a different situation. Joe Paterno obviously is deceased, but, you know, to Ricky Strom's point from yesterday on a death penalty for the Penn State football program, unquestionably, at least 2 or 3 years.
Aren't you a mandatory reporter when you work with young people? Like,
yes,
when
that's a crime.
Yeah, it's a crime. I mean, I don't even know why we're questioning whether or not they should face criminal charges. We have evidence here indicating that they wanted to brush this under the rug and do absolutely nothing about it when a young boy was raped in their facilities. That's definitely something that they should be prosecuted for. So I don't give a shit about their football team, okay? And of course I'm biased in that because I don't care about football anyway. But like, everyone's having this ridiculous discussion about whether or not, you know, the football team deserves a death sentence, right? Or basically suspend it for like a few years. No, that's not enough, okay? That's not the root of the problem here. The root of the problem are the officials that did absolutely nothing about it. They should be prosecuted.
Schultz, Spanier, and Curley are the officials involved here at Penn State, athletic director, and as I said, the president and vice president. I think I agree with Anna. It should at the very least right now be in the middle of an investigation on whether they arrest those folks as we speak. All right, Ricky?
One other thing that should be noted is that Joe Paterno in the grand jury investigation said that he knew nothing before Mike McQueary's testimony of when he saw Sandusky raping a boy in the shower. Now that was in the early 2000s, I want to say 2001, 2002. As we all said, this goes back to 1998. So he knew about it for 14 years and before Mike McQueary's testimony, so he lied to the grand jury about that. So it's, I mean, my personal opinion, I think it's kind of, it's shameful that he's not still alive because I think he should be getting it. I mean, he would obviously, perjury is obviously in the works. And then one other point I want to make, and then getting back to you guys, is that a lot of the alums, including Matt Millen, who went on ESPN today, said that, oh, this is just one man's opinion. It's
No, it's not.
absurd.
Yeah.
Like the mentality with all these notable Penn State alumnus, whether it's LeVar Arrington or Matt Millen, going on radio shows, TV shows, ESPN, and their mentality towards it is just totally delusional.
Yeah, I want to just give you a sense of how much he looked into the matter here. I don't know if I have it in front of me here, but he looked through thousands of emails, right? This is not one man's opinion. He talked to, I think, over 400 witnesses. So this is an exhaustive report. It's not a person's opinion. Yeah, and the other thing that I wanted to mention in regards to what Ricky just said is that the emails specifically refer to talking to Joe, and Joe thinks we should do this, right? So that decision tree didn't go from the president down to Paterno. It went from Paterno down to the president. So that's why Paterno's totally guilty of this. And look, man, if you want to be the most generous you possibly can to Paterno for whatever reason, and you say, look, he knew the guy and was friends with him for 30 years, and he feels some loyalty to him, etc., and it's not about the football program, it's about that. But you know what? Even for your closest friends, there's got to be a bound, and the line is very reasonably molesting kids. It doesn't matter if you knew him 60 years, if you knew him 180 years, if he's your best friend, you can't do that. You have to draw the line. It's not even close. All right, Steve.
Yeah, just real quick on this issue of the death penalty for the football program. If Sandusky had, instead of raping these kids, if he had just given them, I don't know, access to nice things and given them a car and got those kids to sign a letter of intent to go to Penn State, they would actually get the death penalty because that's tampering with recruits and violating NCAA rules. If a player accepted a car or $500 a month for a rent or whatever it may be, that player gets kicked off, loses a scholarship, can't play football again. The consequences are so harsh for these, NCAA violations, and yet here they committed a crime that is, I don't know, 1 million times worse, and there's all this cover-up and hush-hush. And I mean, I don't know, maybe a permanent ban for that program. I don't know, something serious should come down on that program, because that program is what led to all of this, because that program came ahead of everyone else.
Didn't SMU have like the most severe? And what was the SMU death penalty?
I don't remember exactly what it was, but they got banned from playing football for an extended amount of time. They're the only school ever to get the death penalty.
You know, let's look that up, and maybe you could do a clip on it on TYT Sports, Ricky, because
Sure.
I bet you what they got banned for was less than child rape, right? And it devastated SMU's program, as it should have, and it sent a signal, right? So, and a signal apparently needs to be sent here. And look, one last thing on this. This isn't just a football story or a story about somebody who's famous or the college, and not just about this particular case either. It goes to a much larger societal issue, which is where are our priorities? And I love football to no end, right? We're in the beginning of July, and all of a sudden I'm jonesing for football. I'm like, I can't, tick-tock, let's get summer over with already so we can get to football, right? But you can't let that color how you view the real world, okay? And unfortunately, it totally does. Like, they get a whole different standard, and if Paterno was a plumber or a dentist, who would cut him all these breaks? Who would keep giving him benefit of the doubt? Who would go on TV today and be like, oh no, it's just the opinion of one former FBI head who talked to hundreds of people and read thousands of emails? It's just his opinion, man. Who would defend that guy? Nobody would. But he was a really good football coach. And it's not just Anna's point because she doesn't care about football. I care a lot about football. But in the real world, who cares that he was a good football coach? That is so insignificant compared to the crimes here.
One more point is that Mark Parker, the CEO of Nike, who took a hard stance today, actually went to Penn State. And he ran track and field on the team. So that's
Right.
one more thing that should be noted.
Yeah, and my last point on that is, again, your school, who cares about your school? Look, we make fun of JR because he's, USC, rah, 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 right? Like, I have zero connection to any scumbag that went to my school. Like, okay, Donald Trump went to my school. Am I supposed to be like, oh, no, Trump's not that bad. Trump's not that bad. Who cares? I don't understand this weird, I know it becomes like brainwashing and a cult to some degree in some schools. Like, oh, Penn State did no. So everybody who went to Penn State's awesome. Why the fuck would I defend a child rapist who went to my school? How mental do you have to be to give a shit about that? You know, but they do.
By the way, just going to your brainwashing point, Ricky had mentioned something that was really interesting earlier today. Philly.com is reporting that at the Student Center at Penn State, they switched to a public access show right as Louis Freeh was going to do his press conference. So the students were sitting around waiting for the press conference, and boom, it just switches to a public access show.
Yeah, that's real classy. Stay classy, Penn State. Nicely done.